to Running with Rainbows and December's Lady of Light. This month's Lady of Light is Remedios Varos. She is a amazing surrealist artist. She was best friends with Leonora Carrington, and she also had a wonderful relationship with the tarot. So today's class, because there are no other classes really on the internet to help me be inspired about her artwork, and I feel like surrealism can be a bit of a challenge to share. So what we're going to do today is we're going to play a game, which is part of the Surrealistic Manifesto. A lot of those groups, male or female, centered around art games. So we're going to use a tarot deck I created, and we're going to draw 3 cards. So the 3 cards I drew are the Sun, Judgment, and the Emperor. So if you're a tarot person, you may have your own cards. You're definitely welcome to draw your own. I drew mine just in case we have people watching that don't have tarot cards. So the tarot cards that I'm working with today, we're going to use them as a storytelling device. We're going to use the symbols on the cards to help us create a piece of art. We're not going to get into anything tarot. The meanings behind the cards are kind of irrelevant, although if you do know them and enjoy the tarot, you are definitely welcome to enrich this process by going into the meaning and symbolism of each card and incorporating that into your art. For the sake of this video, though, I am not going to deep dive. So the 3 cards we have, oddly enough, lean very towards the divine masculine energy of things. They're very active, very positive energies, very movement orientated. So for me, that says a story about light, about energy, about rising up, about claiming your voice, about speaking from your heart and not waiting for permission from another source, male or female, in your life, a source of authority from the outside of yourself. We're self-directed today, so I feel like the cards I pulled are also very in keeping with the general message I want to impart with you as we leave 2024 and move into the new year of 2025. So the first step, and the things you're going to want to use, included in the kit list that I created for this class, are watercolor paper, pencils, permanent paint pens, markers, pencil crayons, watercolors, mixed media, friends, whatever you want to play with. But ultimately what I'm going to use here today is pencils, ink pens, and watercolors, along with some mark making tools. So the first thing I'm doing here is inscribing some of the meanings and definitions that are ascribed to each of those cards. So for the Sun, I included the elements of happiness, contentment, success, energy, wonder, lucidity, optimism, joy, freedom, fruition, and creative expression. The card known as Judgment in another deck that I'm using here is called Rebirth, and it imparts to us a following of a call, new directions, renewal, transformation, and decision making. And the final card is the Emperor, known as the Lord in some decks. And this again is a divine masculine energy, imparting the energies of fatherhood, leadership, protection, boundaries, and accomplishment. So ultimately, the message from the Lord is to take control of your life and offer clear and firm boundaries to those who depend on you. Lead your life by being true to your values, and you will accomplish great things. Share classes like this. I am aware that our skill sets are so varied that it would be impossible for me to create kind of a step-by-step illustration class. Largely, I am not an illustrator, so I wouldn't be giving you the best tips and techniques. I would be giving you a very outsider's lens. So this methodology that I'm incorporating here allows you to bring any art skills you might have and to make them work the best for you. So in the background in graphite pencil, I inscribed all of those adjectives I just spent a couple minutes there explaining, just to sort of inform the paper and give me some underlayers to work from if I was struggling to find definition or direction for the piece. So in here, I am going to fuse a little bit of resistance from my divine feminine. Of course, seeing all of that masculine energy really brought a dialogue to mind immediately concerning the efforts of the female surrealists. They were heavily imbued and surrounded by male energy that they were working to see past. Leonora Carrington in particular, it's mentioned in her book that she created on her tarot, that finding a feminist perspective within the surrealist movement was very key to her, and I would say that is definitely a part of my aim as well. I love the men in my life, but I tend not to put them into my art quite a bit, because I feel like for me personally, my struggle is still to incorporate my own femininity and to further explore what it means to be a female or a woman in this life. I feel like the world in the way that it is here in 2024, the voices of strong women still need to be heard, still need to be put out there, and are still evolving what it means to be strength. So I feel like one part of strength, especially for a strong female, is being able to incorporate the masculine elements of herself and her life into a healthy balance, and not to the exclusion of one or the other. That has always been an aim for me, is unity between the sexes, between my inner self, between me and the world I live in. That has always been sort of an aim and a dialogue that occurs while I create art. So in this instance, the dominating masculine energy in the cards sort of brought forward from me a very strong feminine energy to respond to that. And in here, I thought it was funny that it came out that I still wanted 3 figures, so they could be the 3 best friends of Leonora, Remedios Varos, and their 3rd friend, Kati Horna from Hungary. So I feel like those ladies would have had the best nights together, the best what if conversations, the best I wonder, I daydream, what could be, what is truth, right? I mean, they were all still looking for what lives beyond the veil that of what is known. And despite our, ancestors, primarily men's efforts to define what is known, it is still very much a mystery, and it is still very available to all of us to seek out for ourselves. So it's always more fun to do it in 3s. It was fun to see that there was actually a book created that is so expensive now that it is limited edition print, that highlights the friendship of those 3 surrealist ladies. It was also interesting studying Remedios and knowing about her name, because I think her name is quite fascinating, and it does mean remedy. But what I found was interesting was that her parents chose to name her as a remedy for the loss of an older daughter, and that resonated with me because I find names are so important, and I feel that in times gone by, we really minimized the effects that changing a child's name arbitrarily like that would have had on them as a person. Just my name, Maya, in the 70s wasn't a very popular name, so it did create its own kind of energy and, ongoing dialogue for me when people mispronounced it, or I was the only person with that weird name in the room, or what the name meant in general. So I found that a fascinating aspect of her character. And, as I mentioned in the written piece of this article, I thought that maybe some of her surrealistic tendencies came from that effort to reconnect with her sister on the other side of things, right? And that definitely, when I review back to my early years of pre-artist and still sort of exploring in my youth, the idea of reaching into the unknown, to the other side, Ouija boards, all of that crazy stuff that I don't particularly ascribe to anymore, were fascinating as a child, because those were the tools that were presented and available and in mainstream media for me to think that, oh, that is how you would reach out for that. In any case, there's lots of other ways. Obviously, I'm much older now. I've researched and spent many years in meditation and contemplation to figure out how best to reach the other side, and it's through the heart, friends. It always has been, always will be. So I'm starting with my lightest shade of watercolor. I've got my permanent Sharpie ink markers down. I've got my graphite pencil informing with its positive message in the very base, and now I'm going to bring in my lightest and work towards my warmest and darkest colors, and then ending with my darkest cool colors. So in a case of a warm wash of yellow, it's not a bad idea to be liberal with it. It really won't adjust too much of your color, especially if it's just a light wash. If you go over top of that with a strong blue, you may have some green, but you can always add a secondary wash to enhance the blue tone. It just creates a nice depth to have a bit of an undercolor instead of just a white paper, which is the same when you're using acrylic paint as well. So I hope if you enjoy this activity today that you might incorporate into your skill set of self-care for 2025. an oracle deck or a tarot deck, or maybe you'll join me in making your own, and that's something to come in 2025 as well. And use it as a way to prompt your creativity. Sometimes we stall. We either get caught up in selling our work or trying to meet a potential viewer's perspective rather than channeling the art from our heart. So this is a wonderful activity and way to get out of your comfort zone, to enjoy sort of touching base and working in a surrealistic vibe, but also to explore the stories that exist within you. When you pull up the images on the tarot cards, inevitably things will pop to mind, memories, scenarios, feelings, thoughts that sort of are triggered by that image. The sun, for example, always triggers within me very feeling orientated things before my thoughts about what I think about the sun comes in, my memories of feeling the heat on my body. And all of those things, as much as they are secondary to creating the art, inform the art, are part of the process, are the overlooked and underspoken wonder elements of making art. And the reason we all come back to repeatedly doing art has to do with how we feel while we make it. So discounting those feelings and that enjoyment of your process is detrimental to the end work as far as I'm concerned. And the large majority of my audience are not making 10 figures from selling their art. So I really, really impress upon you to enjoy your process, to leave out the other markets, the other eyeballs, the other opinions that you're naturally going to want to seek to weigh in on your work. But when we're working with the tarot cards or an oracle or a storytelling device, it's a personal relationship. So whether the art is perfect or not is completely irrelevant. But what occurred in your heart and mind while you created it, 100% relative. So if you don't want to journal what you thought about or how it made you feel while you were working, that's fine, because you know what? Anytime you refer back to this painting, a lot of that will come to mind for you anyway. So I definitely think it's worthwhile to have a little mnemonic, which I don't think is the correct term for this, because that's a literary aid, but like a visual cue of cards that help you to generate a story in your mind, which generates creativity, which opens neural pathways and creates opportunities. And I mean, the more mistakes you perceivably create in your art, mistakes are what create new neural networks in our brains, even as adults, even as our minds are working and growing. Creating art and having this dialogue while you're working on the painting is doing such amazing things to your brain chemistry. So please, friends, we spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars here locally in Oakbank. This is just one example I'm about to give, so it doesn't necessarily apply to the whole world, but we're a hockey town. So I see parents spend so much money on getting their child into a sport, and often art is considered such a passive, non-impactful activity. But I hope if you sat with me for the last 20 minutes or so, you will understand just how much more is going on than is able to be visually proven on a surface or empirically offered as evidence for the value of art. There is value of time spent with yourself, working with yourself, listening to yourself, building your self-rapport with yourself. If you don't have that, you can't have it with other people. So anyway, that's my TED Talk, friends. You got to love yourself, or you're not going to be much help to anybody else, least of all you. So take art as an opportunity to reconnect and to love yourself in an unconditional way. And if that's the message from these 3 cards today, we'll take it, right? Okay. In any case, so here I've been coming in with the greens. Now I'm bringing in my blues to sort of counterbalance all that warmth from the red and yellow. And I'm enjoying just letting the color flow. I'm also, each time I switch to a shade, sort of briefly keeping in mind some of the color wonder information that I associate with the color blue or the color green or the color red or the color yellow. They're very primary colors. They're the very building blocks of life colors. All color springs from these colors, so it's kind of fun to work with the dominant shades because you always have the freedom to explore more by blending them. When I made these particular set of watercolor paints, I made them under a full moon in the summertime, and I took my time with it, and the mulling was a very healing and very relaxing process, a very grounding process. So using my own paints that I've created, knowing I put all of that time, energy, and thought into the creation of my material to work with, does definitely imbue this process of playing with the tarot and the storytelling in a new way. And I find that that is such a joy and such a gift that it could be easy to overlook. But with women going to space, like there was a lady, oh, my brain is blanking on her last name's pronunciation, but her first name is Kelly. And she was the 100th woman in space. She went up on the Blue Origin rocket on Friday. What an amazing time to be alive. There's a lot of pain, there's a lot of separation, there's a lot of fear in the world, but there's also a lot of wonder. And if you're struggling to connect with wonder, I encourage you to take an art class, to share this with a friend and get them doing classes with you so that you guys have an opportunity to get together and do something that creates beauty and puts wonder out into the world and helps to sort of counteract all of that fear and anxiety that is prevalent. And I mean, it is unfortunately winter time, and that is the time of year where a lot of people start to feel that kind of financial and economic stress and family stress. So make some time for art, friends. I feel like it will do you a lot of good, and I mean, you always get what you put out there. So if you have tried this class or any of the classes here at Running with Rainbows this year, I encourage you to share them with me. You're welcome to send them to me privately, or if you're a brave soul and you love to share and put beauty into the world, please feel free to share it on Instagram and tag at Running with Rainbows, or on Substack as well. If you're not that bold but you do want to share, we do have a members only chat thread that is in the Substack app. So if you're using this on your laptop or that's great, but the app for your phone may allow you to have some easier access to some of the features. Yeah, and if you have any requests or questions, please feel free to comment on Running with Rainbows posts, or to DM, or to reply to the email when it comes to your inbox. Thanks again for doing this class with me on Remedios Varos, friends. I hope you enjoyed the article, which is definitely more about her, as I mentioned at the outset of this class. Unfortunately, there wasn't a lot inspired like other classes that were pre-existing to inspire me with a direction to take. So I enjoyed taking our own and maybe creating something original in the process, friends. So I'm excited to do more of this storytelling through tarot this year, 2025, at Running with Rainbows. And in January, if you're already a paying member for the membership program, it's only $8 a month Canadian. You will immediately get it in your inbox January 1st, 2025, the first video for Color Wonder. I am showing you guys a little bit of my process of how I make my own paints, what you could do to make your own paints, and ways to enrich that process so that you can get the most bang for your emotional buck, not necessarily your financial buck, although that does get covered in the workbook that will be available on Etsy as well. That will be available in PDF format currently as a digital download. So I'm excited to bring this all to you and more for 2025. Subscribe to Running with Rainbows on Substack today to stay up to date. Thanks again, friends. Have a wonderful December.